Good evening and welcome to MetroFocus. I'm Jack Ford. Each year, the Pentagon spends more than $1 billion to clean up toxic sites left behind by military installations across the country, including right here in New York. Now, a new report from Publica titled "Bombs in Our Backyard" reveals the scale of the problem and how it's affecting local communities. Using data gathered from the Department of Defense, Publica created an interactive map on which users can enter an address to see a list of nearby hazardous sites and the level of risk they pose. Simple search of the map revealed that New York City has 5 current or former military installations with hazardous sites that are considered high or medium risk. On Long Island, the problem is potentially worse, with as many as 11 sites across 7 installations considered medium or high risk. For example, the 156-acre Suffolk County Air Force Base in West Hampton was deactivated back in 1970, found to have 5 hazardous sites. It's considered high risk for contaminated groundwater, sediment, and soil. Another installation, Camp Hero in Montauk, has been deemed at risk of containing hazardous munitions. There are also high-risk sites at the former naval weapons plants in Calverton and Bethpage. The interactive map is part of a larger ProPublica series investigating how the Pentagon's handling of military waste has poisoned millions of acres and left Americans guessing about the threat to their health. Joining me now to discuss the investigation and the map is ProPublica senior environmental reporter Abrahm Lustgarten. Abrahm, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you taking some time.
Thanks for having me.
So what was it that drew you to this story?
I have been reporting on the EPA for a number of years, and through my conversations with sources there several years ago, I was hearing a lot of frustration out of, they have an office called the Federal Facilities Enforcement Office, hearing a lot of frustration about the difficulty they were having holding other federal facilities, which are the majority of them are run by the Department of Defense, accountable for their environmental problems. That was just a string, and we've been pulling on it ever since. The more we looked, the more we found a large numbers, thousands of quite disastrously contaminated sites of all sorts, and a number of different consistent issues that arose, and it was plenty of fodder to investigate how they use contractors to defer liability, how they avoid cleaning up, how they lobby to keep the enforcement standards as low as possible, and pretty much every other way of avoiding responsibility for environmental contamination.
You've had an extensive and a very well-regarded career as an environmental reporter, so you've seen a lot. Did this surprise you, what you discovered as part of this investigation?
So, I've seen a lot of sites that are horribly contaminated, and some of them, much worse than some of the defense sites we're seeing here in this project. What's astounding with this project is the sheer number and the sheer scope of land that's affected, and the cost of cleaning it up. So 39,000 sites across the country. We're only looking domestically, and the problem goes far beyond that. A total of 40 million acres. If you put all that land together, it's larger than the state of Florida. An amount of money so far, the Pentagon's estimating at $70 billion. So just in terms of scale, it's far larger than anything else I've ever looked at. And in terms of one single entity that's responsible for it, it really dwarfs any other polluter, company, corporation, even industry that I've looked at.
So how does that happen?
It essentially happens through decades of defending the country, having extensive industrial processes like developing bombs, developing sorts of weapons, testing those on lands, and especially in the early years, like many industries, not being particularly aware of the environmental impact of that work. So, that's a long way of saying the Pentagon was behind before it really realized the scope of the problem. You had, say, 5-6 decades of activity, and it wasn't until the 1970s or 1980s that the country was aware of environmental problems enough to even begin to look to limit pollution and fix old pollution problems. And by that point, the horse was out of the barn for the Department of Defense, so to speak.
I suspect that a number of our viewers right now will be listening to this conversation, and their first thought might be, well, wait a minute, doesn't the EPA have regulations here where it would be controlling what is being done, how regularly it's being done? What's the answer to that?
Well, there are regulations that apply, and one of the ways in which the Department of Defense has pushed back over the years has been to limit the scope and the applicability of those regulations. So, Superfund law and hazardous waste handling statutes definitely apply to the vast majority of military installations. For a number of years, the Department of Defense has claimed protection under what they call sovereign immunity, which is a factor that limits how much one executive agency can prosecute or fine another, for example. So the EPA has authority, but not only is it always struggling to handle the actual environmental problems, but it's always pushing back against a headwind in exercising that authority in the first place. It usually wins out in those battles, but making it more difficult has the effect of slowing progress down.
So just how concerned, or indeed even how alarmed, should communities be when they find themselves very close to one of these sites on the map?
I think that entirely depends on the nature of the site, and there's an enormous variety. So there are thousands of sites on that map and that we've been reporting on, which are some of the most horribly contaminated sites in the United States. And many of them are Superfund installations. Many of them involve extensive groundwater contamination. They're labeled as high risk by the Department of Defense, and you can recognize them on the map because they're some of the most expensive to clean up. Those sites are of significant concern. The communities that live around them should be aware of the pollutants that are there. They should be aware that those pollutants, in many cases, are getting into public groundwater supplies, public drinking water supplies. It's definitely a threat that's underreported and worth knowing about. On the other end of the spectrum, out of those 39,000 sites, there are 10,000 or more than 10,000, which are really quite minor in nature or may have been mostly cleaned up over the years. And those are, they can range to being important more for their historical interest. I've discovered a number of sites very close to me, for example, that I didn't know about before reporting on this story. And I don't find them to be an extreme threat, but I'm fascinated to know that, in World War I in my neighborhood, there were, weapons arsenals, which are long gone and have been developed over. So it really spans the gamut. And that's one of the reasons why I think that data set is interesting, because the classification for the severity of the hazard is something that the Department of Defense has attached to those sites and is relative to their other projects. So it's not, say, a subjective estimate of how much danger you're in, but how severe the site is in the context of all the other sites that they're dealing with.
Well, it was certainly impressive and very important reporting. Abrahm Lustgarten, I want to thank you. And again, we appreciate the work that all of you have done. And we appreciate your taking some time to explain this all to us. You take care now.
Thank you so much for your interest.